Sunday school, things like that. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I did have some childhood trauma though, and it really messed with me. As I got older, the trauma really got to me, and it was a secret that I hadn't told anyone. So it just kind of ate away at me on the inside. And by the time I was about 15, 16, I was smoking and drinking, and it was an escape for me, and I did anything for that escape. So within the next couple years, I went from drinking, smoking weed, to taking pills, going to raves regularly, and even snorting cocaine. I was a mess, but I was still going to church at the same time. Eventually, I did meet someone who was what they call a straight edge. He did nothing, which was fantastic for me, except for the fact he also wasn't a Christian. So I started pulling away from God, but I was getting away from the party scene and the drugs. After a couple years with him, we ended up splitting up, and I met someone else who was also a straight edge. However, that took me 6 hours away out to Philadelphia, and even further away from God, because in those 6 years, I did not step foot in a church. I did not talk to God, and I just pulled away. And as I did, my mental health, which I had always struggled with, I was a very moody, irritable, angry person. It just got worse and worse. Then 6 years ago, I moved back to the Pittsburgh area and ended up in Salzburg. But within a few months, I totaled my car, and I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't want to live. I was suicidal at the time. So I saw a sign on the side of the road for Faith Alliance Church, and I said, you know what, I gotta do something. We may as well try going back to church. And the first weekend I was here, it was Father's Day, and didn't do a whole lot for me. But the second week I came back, and it was a different pastor at the time. It was Pastor Bob, and he sat there and told a sermon about depression and things, and I just cried. And I started coming back to church every Sunday since then, for the most part, and really getting back into church. My problem was I had been through so much and had done so many things. I knew God's love and grace was there. I just didn't believe I was worthy of it, even though I thought every single other person was. So I started getting closer to the church and with God, but that was always in the back of my mind about how I wasn't going to be worthy of any of it though. And then a few years ago, 4 years ago, I needed knee surgery, and I had to get a physical for it. And when we went over the mental health questions, I knew I had a mental health issue. Other people, I'm sure, could see it, didn't. She told me I had to go to a psychiatrist. So I decided I was gonna start getting my life together, and I needed that surgery, so I went to the psychiatrist. And it was at that point that I was diagnosed as atypical bipolar, anxiety, and PTSD. I was ashamed. I thought I deserved it, you know. I just figured there was something in my life that I had done that I deserved everything that ever happened to me or I went through. And I knew God was there, but I still wasn't worthy of him. Then last year happened, and I ended a very long relationship, and I decided to give a guy from work a chance, which ended up being a horrible decision because he sexually assaulted me and kicked off my PTSD 10 times worse. And I spiraled. I stopped taking my meds. I didn't feel like they were helping me anymore because I was so depressed. And for months, I just stayed in my house and I pulled away. And then eventually it got so bad, I was actively suicidal. I was looking for ways to end my life. And on my 34th birthday, I spent 9 hours in the ER to then spend 9 days in the psych ward. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, to be honest.
Amen.
Because I got to sit there, and you get a lot of alone time in a psych ward. There's a lot of downtime. So I sat there and I reflected and I prayed and I talked to God like I never talked to God before. And He showed me Himself in the other patients, in the conversations I had with the staff and counselors, in the groups where He showed people's pain and sorrow, but also happiness and joy with the conversations and the crafts that we had. And he told me one day, I'm just sitting there and I'm looking around, and He's like, you know, every single one of them are worthy, so why aren't you? They've been through just as much as you have. They've done things that they're not proud of, but you know they're worthy, so why aren't you? So by the time I left, I came to the conclusion that I was worthy. And that was the first thing I told Sue and Carla at the salon when I got out. I went over one day and I was like, you know what, I'm ready. And in that time, I can't tell you everything that has changed. Yes, I still struggle, I have my moments, but everything is so much better and so much happier. Amen. Because I gave it to God and I was like, look, you know better than me.